Ja, tasty Pelletier Yenishay, Mightish Kizny initially, Billigana Bushes Chin, Keen the Cheatney Dashache, Billigana Dashanole. Welcome back to Resball, where this time we're going to talk about Iowa State guard Keshon Gilbert, who I think hasn't gotten enough love in this 2025 NBA draft class. Super physical guy. Any Iowa State fans out there, you're going to know all about Keshon and just his relentless style of play on both sides of the court, but we're going to fill you in more if you don't know about Keshon Gilbert. So let's get into Keshon Gilbert right about now. So Keshon Gilbert, born in St. Louis, Missouri, as I said before, St. Louis, a great basketball city. They definitely need to have an NBA team in St. Louis. A lot of good talent coming out of St. Louis. But Keshon started his high school basketball career in Las Vegas at Durango High School. As a sophomore there, was pretty good, and then went back to St. Louis for senior year. At least I'm not sure if he went there junior year, but I do know that back in St. Louis at Vashon High School in St. Louis, Keshon Gilbert helped Vashon High School win the state title that year. So scored around like 13-ish points per game. Got like the 3-star, 4-star recruit put on him there, and then ended up at UNLV for a couple years. And then these last 2 seasons has been at Iowa State, and this has been fantastic there. So took a little bit of a journey, but Keshon Gilbert, great guy. Ended up graduating from Iowa State with a degree in sociology. So that is also something that congratulate the young man. Good job getting your degree there. And sociology major, somebody finally not in finance here. So Keshon Gilbert this last season at Iowa State scored 13.4 points per game, pulled in pulled in 3.5 rebounds per game, dished out 4.1 assists, had 1.7 steals per game, 0.1 blocks per game, and then 3.2 turnovers per game. Shooting splits for Keshon Gilbert were 54.1% from 2-point range, 33.3% from 3-point range, and then 72.9% from the free throw line. All of this translates into a true shooting percentage of 56.9%, which was a career high for Keshon Gilbert this last season. Physical is the number one thing to describe Keshon Gilbert. Free throw attempt rate last year was 54.6%. I mean, my goodness, as a guard, as the main guy, that's super high. And then this year went down, quote unquote, to 41.4%. Any guard that gets over 40% free throw attempt rate, you know how to get to the line, whether it's through your physicality or craft. I think it's a little bit of a combination for both for Keshon Gilbert. I mentioned in the beginning, Keshon Gilbert went to UNLV. Those are the first 2 seasons in college basketball for Keshon. Even then, only 458 minutes as a freshman, only 852 as a sophomore. Both of those seasons over 35.4% free throw attempt rate. So even when he was in a supplementary role, he still got to the free throw line. Then they give him the ball at Iowa State, 25.1% usage last year, 23.9% this year. And he rewarded them with just being able to get to the free throw line almost at will. Totals on these last year, 202 trips to the free throw line. Man, it's rare every year to find anybody that gets over 200 trips to the free throw line. And then this year it did take a dip to 118 trips to the free throw line, but still over 110 trips to the free throw line, nothing to sneeze at. You combine this also with assists, 155 assists last year, 119 assists this year. This is somebody you can give the ball to as a primary guy to set up offense. I'm not going to argue for Keshon being a starter, but I do think he's somebody that plays the point guard and has size to play both spots. Keshon Gilbert did go to the G League Elite Camp, if you see it right here, and measured in at 6'2.5" without shoes. So we're looking at 6'3", 6'4", depending on the shoes you're wearing. 6'6.25" wingspan, and weighed in at 184.6 pounds. Keshon looks slim, but he's skinny strong. You see that on defense as well, where he definitely doesn't get shook. You see the totals as well, 38 steals or more every single year, all 4 years, even as a freshman, got steals, 38 as a freshman, 52 steals as a sophomore, 74 steals as a junior, and then 49 steals as a senior. You go look at that steal rate, and it is 3.1% or better every single year. This year as a senior, 3.1% was the career low, quote unquote, but I mean, this Iowa State team was very, very good, 25-10. Made it a second round in the NCAA tournament where they fell to Mississippi. I mean, they had a really good defense on all fronts. Curtis Jones was the only other quote unquote defensive liability at 165 pounds, but even he held his own. Joshua Jefferson, fantastic, versatile big man, 6'8", 220. Tamin Lipsey was the other guy, another guard spot, able to hold his own. And then Milan Momcilovic, not necessarily thought of as, a defender, but positionally somebody who's not a great athlete laterally or quickly, but he just never gets cooked and he stays in positions. And then Deshaun Jackson was the other guy at the big man spot. Everybody there was physical and held down their ground. So it is part of the reason why the production was down, quote unquote, for Keshon Gilbert in a lot of ways, and giving more usage to like Curtis Jones and Damon Lipsey. That's why for a lot of this stuff, you might see it be like, I don't know, does anybody turn the ball over? Well, it's because TJ Olsenberger and that staff were like, okay, we got a varied attack. We got guys that can all do a little bit of different things. Even like Milan Momcilovic, who had to sacrifice and take more of a supplementary shooter role. It helped the overall team to be as good as they were this past season. And Keshon Gilbert, again, the numbers might have suffered, but the team overall benefited, and he still was able to get to the free throw line. Still had a very good assist rate, 24%, and just overall team game on offense and defense that helped out a ton. Let's look at the shot chart for Keshon Gilbert. Well, we got somebody who's the best at finishing at the rim out of Kasper Ziakachonis, Igor Demine, and then Keshon's the best finisher just by a hair. If you remember, Kasparas took 92 shots at the rim. Igor took 96 at the rim. Well, Keshon beats them just by one, 97 shots at the rim, drains 68 of them for 70.1%. So the percentage isn't as good as Kasparas. It's only 1% off pretty much. And then that's a bigger number of shots. It's 5 more shots. So really good. 70% at the rim. That tracks last year. That tracks this year. And then 38 of 89 in the paint. That number has to get better. I think Keshon's touch isn't exactly stellar. So he does have to work on rudder floater game, getting a little bit more touch there in the paint. Whether that's something he can add, this is one of the things when I talk to other people that do scouting and talent evaluation, seems like there are a lot of people that are like, if you don't have touch now, I don't think you'll get it. I don't necessarily subscribe to that train of thought. 42.7%, 38 of 89 in the paint doesn't scream like you have no touch. Probably screams like you're either covered too much or you're getting up too many shots. And 89 shots in the paint, we've already looked at some big men that haven't gotten that many shots off in the paint. The fact that Keshon can get there, great. And again, the free throw attempt rate, 41.4% or greater in his 2 seasons at Iowa State, 54.6% last year. That's the bigger part of it, is like this guy's game is getting to the paint and he can finish really good at the rim. We just got to get better at finishing in the paint. And another one along with Diego last time where it's like the team context doesn't necessarily scream like he was covered up too much, like Curtis Jones, Tamin Lipsey, Milan Momcilovic, all those guys, good offensive players and had games that kept pressure off Keshon. But the percentage, not bad, but it can definitely be improved and make him an even better overall player. Because from 3, that is the area where Keshon, I think, is more concerning. 36.4% on above the break threes this past season, 24 of 66. Not a ton of shots from 3. And then 2 of 11 from the corners, 18.2%. Small sample size. So to me, again, if it's that small, I'm not going to really put much stock to it. 5 shots from the right corner, or 6 shots from the right corner, or 5 shots from the left corner. Again, that's such a small sample size that doesn't tell us anything. 6 of 16 for Keshon Gilbert from the left wing, 37.5%. Good percentage. 14 of 33 from top of the key, which was the shot he took the most from anywhere in 3-point range, 42.4%. Great indicator there that when he took the most shots from the longest part of the court, he shot the best percentage there by far. So fantastic. And then 4 of 17 from the right wing, 23.5%. Another guy that I would just look at in terms of the shot breakdown and distribution and know like, okay, there's one percentage that really drug it down. And if he's knocking down just a few more of those, instead of posting that 3-point percentage this year of 33.3%, we're looking at somebody that's like 36%. It really just came down to a couple missed shots and this one area where he struggles. So this is, as you notice, no mid-range game to speak of. This is where all 3 of these guys like really didn't do much in the mid-range, even though I gave them all the old old school point guard comp. They definitely don't embrace the mid range as old school point guard type of players, which is good. Again, when you have guys like this and you're like, okay, I'm not going to argue for them as the man for Keyshawn. It's like either end of round two or undrafted type of guy. You don't want to have that in the profile where you're like, oh, they're over relied on the shot that in the NBA we don't want them to take, and they're going to have to unlearn it. You don't have to unlearn that with Keyshawn because by and large, he's either taking threes or he's shooting in the paint or at the rim. Overall, 285 shots, and only 21 of them came in the mid range. So, again, easy argument for me of like, look, he already knows what to do. We don't have to train him how to stop taking all these inefficient shots because really he's not taking any inefficient shots. Only 6 shots from the left baseline, only 6 shots from the right baseline, only 5 from left elbow, only 4 from right elbow. Again, if you want to say he needs an elbow jumper because you want him to play point guard in the NBA, fine. I'm just not going to get there because there are a lot of dudes like Deuce McBride, Javon Carter, even guys that don't shoot threes like Trey Jones, like they don't need that elbow jumper necessarily to continue to succeed in the NBA. And for Keyshawn with the size 6'3", 6'6" and a quarter-inch wingspan, the physicality on defense, the physicality on offense, like, yeah, let's not have the physical guy chuck up mid-range shots. No, 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 no. We ain't doing that. We just want him to shoot threes, and we want him to consistently put that pressure on the rim and on the free throw line that he's already been able to show here as well. So, man, this is where again, like I said last time with Diego Domine, I don't like to like play my hand with the comps to be like, yeah, this guy's gonna be like blah blah blah, and then I say they're gonna be drafted in 60, which is where I put Keshon Gilbert at 60 because I do think like he's worth a late second round pick, anywhere from 46 to 60, just because you don't see this combination of physicality on both ends of the court very much. You see the 3-point numbers like every year that he's gotten more than 15 minutes per game have been fine. 3 of the past 3 seasons, Keshon Gilbert has shot 35.3%. It's a lower volume, so this is somebody that in the NBA you probably want to take a little bit more 3-point attempts than what they've taken in college. 28.0% 3-point attempt rate all 4 seasons. The last 2 seasons, it's been 28.1% and 27.4% 3-point attempt rate. So it is a lot less of the shot diet. But again, nothing really indicates in this profile that he can't switch to knocking down like 3 or 4 per game, taking 3 or 4 per game, even in a supplementary role. And then the free throw percentage has been 72% or better these last 3 seasons, 74.1%. So nothing in it screams like the mechanics are bad or that he can't be a supplementary shooter. It's just that Iowa State asked him to primarily attack, create, draw those free throws. And all you got to ask him to do now is say, continue to play your defense, continue to be physical, but you probably want to start with the 3-point shot as we're going to ask you to be, somebody in the back end of the rotation. Eventually work your way into being a rotation piece. But again, I had a hard time finding somebody who's around 6'4"-ish, who I think can play both guard spots, but who is primarily a driver, somebody who can play point guard, and somebody who's a really good defender. I got kicked around Javon Carter, but that didn't work because Javon Carter never was this kind of free throw generator. Javon Carter was a way better 3-point shooter. The difference in size, Javon is like 6'1", 200. As I said before, Keshon is 6'2" and a half inch without shoes, and then 184. And that's like a cut 184 too. I implore anybody to watch the film. If you have not watched any Iowa State, not watched any Keshon Gilbert, just remember everything that you see this guy do, 184 pounds, you think this guy's like 210, 220, the way that he plays and the way he can get in there on both ends. So I ended up with Derek Harper as the comp for Keshon. Again, I know that's a little bit overplayed here, but Derek Harper, if you all remember, pretty much around the same size that Keshon was listed at, like 6'4", 190-ish type of guy, played either guard spot. Very good point guard. Also had off-ball skills to play the shooting guard spot. Could start, could come off the bench. You could play him either way. And then his shooting was just average. Like it wasn't top-notch sharpshooter type of skills, but it also wasn't somebody that ends up being unguarded in the NBA. And the primary thing for Derek Harper was making his money on the defensive end of the ball while having supplementary offense that can play with just about anybody. So that is where I came to, because I do think it's going to be somebody like that if Keshon works out. And I do like Keshon. I feel like he's going to be a rotation piece for a long time. And if you can think of somebody better in the modern NBA, is another one why I went with all old school comps too, is as I said with all of them, with Kaspers, it's like he could play fast. He doesn't really have the mid range. He can play both guard spots. He's is a legitimate like 6'6", like, but the game is more scoring and playmaking at the same time, which is where I went up with Nick Van Exel, Yegor, super tall. You definitely know he's going to be a playmaker no matter what. And it seems like guys always want to play with him, and he'll make that job all the time. So Grievous Vasquez, and for a Keshon Gilbert, it's like 6'4" ish, can play either spot, physical on both ends of the court, probably buy into more defense and then work on the shooting as it comes around. This is where, like, yeah, if that works out, it ends up being something like Derek Harper. Maybe on the lesser end of, like, if the shooting doesn't work out, it ends up being Josh Okogie. I think Josh Okogie is still like 6'4", 205-ish, so there's a bit of difference in size. But same thing with Josh, is like he's a willing shooter, but not necessarily part of his game, and more physical and known for defense. And that's how he's been able to make his money and stay out on the court all this time. The one last thing to touch on with Keshon Gilbert is the turnovers, like 87 as a sophomore, 103 as a junior, and then 94 as a senior. That turnover rate is astronomically high for a guy that's been in college 4 years. It was 30.5% as a freshman, inexcusable even as a young guy, 21.8% as a sophomore, and then 18.1% as a junior. You hoped and you prayed as a senior. It's like, okay, this guy's been in college for 3 years. He's been in a system now where he's been successful. He got some really good teammates, but the turnover rate went to 21.6%. Absolutely somebody that needs to be told to chill out. You got to stick to the simple plays in the NBA, like no fancy stuff, man. Being aggressive, this is where the being aggressive part is to his detriment. He has to be able to make smarter decisions with the basketball. Might end up being the difference between making an NBA roster and being in an NBA rotation versus playing somewhere that is not the NBA. Because when you're a guy that's in the second round, undrafted, like, you can't be making that many mistakes, man. Especially if you're a guard, you have to be able to take care of the basketball. So that is the biggest skill that is going to determine if Keshon Gilbert ends up being an NBA player. And why I put him at 60, if he had a way better turnover rate than this, like around 15 or below, then this is somebody that I would have pumped up more into like at least the mid 40s, like 42, 45, somewhere around there. But man, that turnover rate is hard to ignore, and something that has to be addressed first and foremost. You got to figure out how to chill out and cut down on all these turnovers, because now you're transitioning in the NBA where you're going to be asked to be a role player and you cannot turn the ball over that much. I mean, the freshman, 450 minutes, 30.5% turnover rate. If you do that in your first year in the NBA, you ain't getting a second year. So some things to look at for Keshon Gilbert on YouTube. Big 12 Conference has a bunch of Keshon Gilbert highlights, but definitely worth checking out all the way there. And then there are a couple Iowa Cyclone channels. Cyclone Insider has a nice bunch of interviews of like post game and stuff here. And then the other one was Cyclone Fanatic. Again, a lot of good interviews, a lot of good moments with Keshon, just to get an idea of the young man there. Because there is a lot to like. Again, you can utilize that physicality on both ends of the court. Really comes down to just taking a little bit more threes and working on that 3-point shot, because there is a ton to like about Keshon Gilbert. I do think should be drafted at the end of the second round when all is said and done in the 2025 NBA draft class. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to us. We will catch you next time. Whole new player group next time. I'll go night.